Now we're going to take a look at the vocabulary for the first half of Lección 2. We're going to talk about present tense of AR verbs. So when we're talking about activities, we have to use verbs. A verb is a central part of a sentence, whether you're in English or Spanish. Verbs express actions or a state of being is how we want to think about them. In English and Spanish, the infinitive is the base form of the verb. So in English, the infinitive then is preceded by to. So if my verb is study, the infinitive would be to study. If my word was be, which is a state of being, to be happy. But be is the state of being that's expressing that. In Spanish, the infinitive has a conjugation that indicates it. And that would be the ending AR, ER, or IR. So that would be the base form of the verb. So estudiar means to study. It doesn't have a subject. It's in infinitive form because it has that ending of AR, ER, or IR. In this lesson, we're going to start learning how to conjugate these verbs because unlike in English, we would say, I study. And so you don't actually change the word study. You change the subject in front of it. In Spanish, we have to change the way the verb is done to indicate who is doing the action. So if you're looking at an AR verb, we would do o, as, a, amos, ais, an. So I would take the AR off of the infinitive form of estudiar, and I would replace it with an O if it was for I study, an AS for you, which would be the informal idea of it, so a peer or a family member. It would be an A for the formal, like a teacher, an authority figure, or just he or she. And then it would continue on in those conjugations. So this is a unique piece of looking at Spanish sentence formation as compared to English. So if I had Juan Carlos estudia ciencias ambientales, that would be Juan Carlos studies the science. So estudia is estudiar because Juan Carlos looks like it's not a close acquaintance. So it's conjugated into the AR form for usted. And then you have y tú, ¿qué estudias Miguel? So in this case, Miguel looks like it's probably a peer. So it's using estudias because that's the to form of the AR verb. To create the forms of most regular verbs, meaning regular means they're not exceptions to the rule, you're going to drop the ending. So take off the AR, the ER, or the IR. Then you're going to take and add the correct ending that corresponds. So if it's estudiar, it becomes yo estudio. So the AR turns into an O for I. Bailar would be tú bailas. I'm taking the AR off. Trabajar goes into nosotros trabajamos. So I'm just taking those endings off and replacing them. This is the list of vocabulary words that we have already learned that we should now be able to use this to conjugate. The easiest way to conjugate this is to have just a list of the endings. You don't want to memorize every single conjugation of every single verb. You want to memorize the process to getting to the right conjugation. Unless you're referring to a person, there are some specific verbs, buscar, escuchar, esperar, and mirar, that do not need to be followed by prepositions like in English. So busco la tarea is I'm looking for the homework. The word busco communicates I'm looking for. But in English, I have to actually put that for as a separate word. Busco is implying that because it's to look for. Espero, same thing. I'm waiting for is how espero would be translated. The bus. So unless it's going to be a person, then I don't need to add that actual article. If it is a person, then I would need to add an article. So let's compare and contrast here. English has 3 sets of forms of verbs to talk about the present. There is a simple form, which is works. There's present progressive, which is working. And there's the emphatic present, which would be Paco does work. So I'm having that does hold the present tense over work. In Spanish, the 3 simple present tenses can be used in all 3 cases. So, Paco trabaja en la cafetería could mean Paco works in the cafeteria, Paco is working in the cafeteria, or Paco does work in the cafeteria. How do we filter through this? It's all about context. It is very important as you look at this, we look at context. So if someone asked you, ¿Dónde trabaja Paco? Where does Paco work? And you said Paco trabaja en la cafetería, then that would make sense to say Paco does work or in the cafeteria, because I asked you where does he work. If I asked you where is Paco working at right now, you might say Paco is working in the cafeteria. But the Spanish construction would not change. When two verbs are used together with no change of subject, the second verb is generally left in infinitive form unless it's an exception to the rule. To make a sentence negative in Spanish, I would place the word no before the conjugated verb. So if I have deseo hablar, notice I conjugated deseo for I want or I wish, and hablar is left in the infinitive form. If you notice in the next one, I would say Alicia no desea bailar ahora. So the key here is Alicia doesn't want to dance right now. The no has to come before the conjugated verb. If you said Alicia desea no bailar ahora, that would be incorrect. So make sure when you're placing your negatives, the negative needs to go before the conjugated verb. Spanish speakers often omit the subject pronoun because the verb ending tells us who the subject pronoun is. So this is kind of in context with once we write in English, we would keep saying he or she over and over, or the person's name over and over, whereas in Spanish, we don't tend to do that. So once we've established who we're talking about, we tend to drop off the pronoun, and that's okay because the conjugation of the verb indicates that presence of the subject. The verb gustar is different from other AR verbs because to express likes and dislikes of that, we're going to have an extra piece put in there. So no me gusta, and then you have no me gustan. So no me gusta plus the el or the la and a singular noun. If it's plural, so I don't like classical music, or I like classical music. Could be me gusta la música clásica. Música clásica is singular, so that's why it's gusta. If you want to say, a mí me gustan las artes, it's gustan because las artes is plural. Same thing with las clases, that's plural, so the verb becomes me gustan. And then last, the program is singular, so me gusta is the form that we would use there. To talk about what you like and don't like, we would use me gusta versus no me gusta. If it's an action that you don't like, you leave it in the infinitive form. And the no would come before the me instead of before the gusta. So in other verb situations, we said we would put the no before the conjugated verb. This is an exception. So we would say, no me gusta viajar en autobús. I don't like to travel by bus. If I wanted to say, me gusta cantar y bailar, notice that cantar and bailar are in their infinitive forms because they're coming after gusta. Now, this is not necessarily followed through in other places, but it doesn't matter how many you have after gusta, they are going to remain in the infinitive form. If you want to ask somebody about likes or dislikes, we would use the pronoun te instead of me. You could also use a ti, but basically you would never use tú. So because you're asking about preferences, instead of saying tú, you would use te. ¿Te gusta la geografía? Do you like geography? Sí me gusta. ¿Y a ti te gusta el inglés? Yes, I like it. And you, do you like English? So the you form, the tú form, transforms into te whenever we're asking about preferences. Pay very close attention to that in Portales. Last, I can use the same structure to talk about people by using pronouns like nos, le, and les. Unless you're told otherwise by the culture that you're working with, Only the me and te forms will appear on test materials until Lección 7. We are mostly going to be utilizing me and te, but I want to note that nos, le, and les are options for down the road.